Hallo und herzlich willkommen zu dieser Folge vom Dozenten-Plausch. Mein Name ist Philipp Meisinger und ich bin Sprecher vom JCF Jena. In dieser Folge unterhalten wir uns mit Professor Ivan Vilotijević. Der ein oder andere kennt ihn wahrscheinlich schon aus OC4, aus dem Bachelor oder dann eben aus verschiedensten Mastermodulen. Ich will ihn eigentlich gar nicht lang vorstellen, weil das macht er dann nachher nämlich selber. Also wenn ihr hören wollt, was er wirklich Interessantes zu erzählen hat, bleibt einfach dran und schaut weiter. Falls ihr Ideen habt, mit wem wir noch weitere Interviews führen sollten, schreibt sie uns gerne in die Kommentare unten rein. Ansonsten wünsche ich euch viel Spaß beim Anschauen.
I think for the first question, we start right at the beginning of your career. You started to study in Belgrade and then moved to the US for doing studies. What was the motivation for going from Belgrade to the US?
Mm. So I studied at University of Belgrade, and I was considering even an option of pursuing my studies elsewhere. I grew up in Serbia in the tough times, so during the 90s, and the country wasn't doing that well. Science is obviously not a priority in these situations, so there wasn't a lot of investment in science. There was a lot of issues with infrastructure to begin with, and I felt like I needed to really pursue something else for myself. I really wanted to become a scientist, but I felt like my efforts in Serbia would have less chances of success. So I decided to go abroad, and particularly I decided to go to the States because I had friends who went through a similar process, and I went for my PhD to the States, but before doing that I actually did internships in several universities in the States. So those were summer internships at Ohio State, at University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. And those were such great experiences for me that I wasn't really even considering Europe as an option at that point, I have to say. So I decided to apply and started my PhD at MIT in 2005.
What were the hard things to adapt to in the US? So what were the differences in the academic culture between those two countries?
So for me, going to the States for my PhD was not such a huge I didn't have a cultural shock at that point because I've already spent some time in the States during the internships. But I suppose the biggest difference for me was that we were all on campus, and everything was really revolving around research and going to lab in the university. So it was a very immersive experience. So it wasn't difficult to adjust to that because it kind of just takes you in, which is great, but it was a big difference. In terms of cultural shock, when I first went to the States, I don't know, it seemed like, I think a lot of Europeans experience that Americans tend to appear as super polite. And everyone was asking how your day was going and so on, and I wasn't really used to that. So it was a typical culture shock for Europeans going to the States.
When you reflect back on your PhD time, you already said you did it at MIT, so one of the most famous colleges in the world. How would you say was your PhD time in general? So not just doing research, but also for you personally?
Oh, it was fantastic. I have to say that I actually remember this time as one of the best times in my life. I do also have to say that again, it's an immersive experience. So I started off living on campus the first year, making friends who were all students at MIT from different departments and so on. And it's just such a great atmosphere and such a great environment. So from my personal experience, I was in the lab where my boss was not someone who was really cracking the whip. So he relied on peer pressure to drive students to work hard, and it definitely worked. So when you're in an environment where everyone is really competitive and really driven, you end up working long hours, but you're also surrounded by people who understand the troubles that you may be going through. So troubles with sometimes motivation, sometimes with chemistry just not working out, and so on. So it was a great time. I made some of the best friends that I have nowadays during that time as well. So I feel like it really, in a way, I like to think that my time at MIT did not even come to an end, because I'm still very much in contact with a lot of the people that I met there.
During your PhD, you worked on the synthesis of polyethers, and when I read about that, I came across the word what was called the zipper mechanism, which was involved in all that. Would you be so kind to explain shortly what that means?
Sure. So it's not quite a zipper. I think that there's another reaction in organic chemistry that's called alkyne zipper that's more of a zipper. But so basically, we were working on a class of natural products called ladder polyethers that have multiple oxygen heterocycles fused to each other. And we were trying to achieve something that has been postulated about, at that point, it was about 25 years ago, that was a biosynthetic hypothesis for these molecules. And the hypothesis said that they could be produced from a polyepoxide precursor. The problem is that conventional empirical evidence says that the reactions that we needed to, the regioselectivity of the reactions that we needed to do would go the other way. And we've worked tirelessly on trying to persuade these molecules to react in a way that produces ladder polyethers. And we managed to do that. So that was probably the most significant discovery during my PhD. This has been a project that the group has been pursuing for some time before I started and continued to pursue after I departed the group. So it was actually really satisfying, I think, probably about 2 years ago, a giant molecule, ladder polyether gymnosin B, was completed by the group of Tim Jameson, who was my PhD advisor, and they used the methods that I developed during my PhD. So that was very satisfying to see other people actually succeeding with what you have created. So that's pretty cool.
And then after your PhD, you moved back to Europe for your postdoc. Why did you came back to Europe at all?
So I told you already that I didn't really properly consider Europe for my PhD. I think that was more circumstantial than anything else. It just happened so. But as I was becoming more of a scientist and as I was learning more about what other people are doing, I realized that there's a lot of great science happening in Europe. And it seemed to me that going back to Europe wouldn't be in any way a step down. And it would make me be closer to family, so I would be able to travel back to Serbia to visit my family more often. And it was also a two-body problem, so my partner was very much on the European side of things, so we decided to go back to Europe. I have also decided that I wanted to do something different for my postdoc, so I didn't really just want to continue organic synthesis. And there were a few very strong groups in this area of carbohydrate chemistry that I decided to pursue for my postdoc, and it just kind of all clicked together.
And then after that, you got your tenure position here in Jena, and there you changed subjects. So you already said you was working on carbohydrate chemistry before, and now on method development. Why did you want to change the topic?
Oh, well, the change is the only constant in the world, I think, and I think change is always good. Well, I should rephrase that. Change is when you learn the most. Let's put it that way. So just when I was deciding to accept the job in Jena, and when I was deciding on the topics that I actually wanted to pursue in my independent career, I was very much aware of the fact that I worked with people who are giants in science, who are the leaders in the fields that they are working on. and I felt like it wouldn't be wise to try to compete with them. So I decided to take a step back, see what my skills are, what my interests are, and see the things that I'm the most passionate about. So I decided to pursue, I would say to stay in the field, obviously, in organic synthesis, but to explore topics that are unrelated to my PhD or my postdoc work in carbohydrate chemistry. So we are now working in development of methods for organic synthesis. We are also doing some organic synthesis ourselves. And we are specifically interested in organophosphorus chemistry and alloys-based catalysis. So those are the two areas that we are pursuing the most.
Completed your tenure. Congratulations for that.
Thank you.
And you made that topic up. So would you say that the tenure track is a good system for academic careers, or do you think there would be something else that would be better?
So in Germany, most people from Europe will recognize that the system is changing a little bit. So it used to be this habilitation system, or a system where people would work as group leaders in research institutes and then look for permanent professorship. Now we have tenure track system where people get assistant professorships and work towards getting the permanent position in the same place. And we currently have a weird situation where things are running in parallel. And I would say that there are certainly advantages to either of the two systems that we have. I personally prefer the tenure track system because it allows people to become independent earlier in their career. So that's certainly something that's a good thing. But I do think that tenure track system should learn from the previous experiences with habilitation system, where you actually have a mentor for habilitation. And I think that strong mentorship should be a component of tenure track system. It just needs to be a little less formal. So if you have friendly environment with colleagues who are helpful, I think that that's probably the winning system.
You said you dedicate a whole lot of your life to do science, but do you have any hobbies besides doing science?
Oh, so my life really revolves around university and my research. It doesn't leave me with a lot of free time, I have to say. But I do really enjoy traveling, so that's something that we do on the regular. Whenever there's an opportunity for a short weekend getaway, we are very happy to do that. I do enjoy movies as well. I used to be a movie buff. As of lately, not so much, because there's less and less time to enjoy movies. But yeah, those are mostly the things that I do, yeah.
What would you say, so maybe as last question, is your, let's call it, fountain of motivation? So where do you get the energy from to do science every day?
I don't really know where I get the energy. I mean, for me, it's, I think that the energy is there always, right? It's the question of how you want to spend the energy that you have on things. And for me, I'm doing what I really enjoy. So in many ways, although there are times that are, that a career of a professor is frustrating and problematic, I know that there's always things that I enjoy doing. Research is where my head and heart usually are. So just these great moments when you discover something new, or when you're planning a new set of experiments that will asking questions and trying to answer them. It's always fun. It's never boring, and it just keeps you going, I think. Plus, I have to say, I do consider teaching and education as really main part of my job, and that's such a satisfying thing when you see, when you immediately see the effects of your work. When you see students progressing and learning things, that's very satisfying to me as well.
Thank you for the interview. At the end, we have some short questions. So just the first answer that pops into your mind is the answer to that question. So the first one, summer or winter?
Oh, summer, hands down.
Your favorite vacation?
Oh, I don't know if there is a favorite vacation. I like to go to weird places. I usually like to go to cities, but somehow I just want to go to Antarctica and experience the chills, I suppose.
Then NMR or MS?
Oh, NMR.
Nature or city?
Both. City, but also nature, yeah.
What is the most ridiculous German word?
Well, Schadenfreude, yeah.
Are you missing something from Serbia?
Maybe some food, although it's relatively easy to get in Germany as well.
Okay, and the best moment at work?
When a student comes to you with new results, when we answer questions that we have asked.
And what would be the best advice you could give a student?
So pursue your interests and try to find a career where you feel like your job is your hobby. I think that's a good recipe for success in life. Well, for happiness in life, I suppose. Yeah.
Okay, that sounds like a very good closing word. So thank you, Ivan, for your time and doing the interview with us.
Thank you, Philip, and all the best to Young Chemica Forum.